Hello, everyone. My name is Tammy Szijarto, founder of Project ScaleUp. I consult early stage companies, both startups and small businesses, turning ideas into viable and long term sustainable businesses. Our guest today is none other than the very talented Kail, founder of Camp Copeland Studio based in Pittsburgh, creating handcrafted art objects for the home, specializing in kiln-formed glass. I'll have him explain that, along with his partner, Alyssa, who is a master in fiber arts, and he will explain that too. Drew, can you tell us more about the aesthetic? And it's really a philosophy of Camp Copeland and why it's different.
Yes, first of all, thanks for having me. This is great. It's nice to see you again. Camp Copeland, we started off as being artists first and foremost. So myself, I'm a glass artist. Kiln-formed glass is glass that is formed kind of in an electric kiln, similar to like a ceramic kiln. And my wife works with fiber. She does wet felting. And we've been working as artists for about maybe 15 years or so. So first and foremost, we are artists. We like working with the materials. We like expanding and trying new things with the materials. We started Camp Copeland Studio as a way to share that with other people. And it became kind of a philosophy. So we say we make art for everyday living, and we want our customers to live with fewer but better things. And so we take our high crafted handmade home goods. We make everything from soap dishes to pieces of wall art. And we intend to have those in people's homes to elevate their live space rather than our customers buying cheaply made, mass produced pieces from big box stores and chains like that. So really the whole business started when I was cooking one day and I realized I didn't have a spoon rest. And Alyssa was like, oh, I'll just go look on the internet and I'll see what we have available. And she was looking and we were looking at them and they were very cheaply made. They didn't look very interesting. And I started thinking, oh, I can make one of those because I am a glass maker. And so this here is basically what started the business. This spoon rest, which I made 8 years ago and still looks exactly the same as it did 8 years ago. And I use it every day. And we started from there. And then we branched off into like, what else could we do to challenge this like mass produced throwaway culture? And that's how we began. And we've just continued to grow from there.
And this spoon rest is still one of your best sellers today.
It is. Yes, it is our top seller. That and our soap dishes are top sellers. So they're cast glass spoon rests and soap dishes.
How long do these last? Do they last forever?
They can. Yeah. I mean, if you were to drop this from a distance, it would break just like any other ceramic piece, but it's good with glass is it's non-porous. It's really easy to clean, absorbs heat and loses heat pretty quickly. So yeah, honestly, this one is the first one I made and I use it every single day. And it looks pristine.
What I noticed when I was looking through your product categories was that you had things that go well together. So whether it was a spoon rest or wall art or some other home good item, they tend to flow together really well. It wasn't a discordant type of, you had a purple matte vase here or some other design here. They all went together. So it looked like designer pieces if you had them in your house.
Yes, that's definitely by design. So I study a lot about color theory and what colors can actually enhance people's lives rather than, just putting things out there. All of our colors are strategically chosen. I happen to be a big fan of pastels, so it kind of works that way anyways. But yes, we try to commingle materials. So Alyssa chooses colors, I choose colors that all go together. So whether she makes a felt bowl or centerpiece, that's going to match up in a color palette. If you took a color wheel of Camp Copeland, they would all be very complementary of one another so that you can just have a one-stop shop to fill your home with like fewer but better things rather than just random pieces that you find at a box store. So we really wanted to have objects that make like a personal connection. So they're not this thing that's made in a big factory on a chain that just squirts out into a mold or something like that. We wanted to make you can see us. We make everything that we sell with our own two hands. So just the two of us, we're the whole company from production, marketing to everything. We're about as small as you can get. And we want to help create that personal connection to the object because we feel like if you have that personal connection to an object, then it kind of enhances your relationship to the object and your ownership of it. And it makes your whole space kind of feel better.
And even your materials come from the US, from Oregon?
They do. So my glass comes from Oregon and Alyssa's felt comes from from New York, so it's all American made. And Alyssa uses all remnant felt, so she's actually
Huh.
keeping that felt out of a landfill as well. A big part of our mission is sustainability and glass and materials. So she uses these reclaimed materials. I use a lot of reclaimed materials and some cast centerpieces and things like that. We're trying to reduce our carbon footprint. Again, going back to like reducing the mass production throwaway culture, we're kind of leading that into more into the, we want to reduce our carbon footprint and be responsible as well as a company.
So I've watched one of those Marie Kondo
Oh,
series
yes.
on TV, and it felt like that when I was looking at your very clean. Talk to us about was it Japandi or Scandinavian type of clean design that you incorporated into this?
I definitely am kind of a Nordic file, I guess. I really appreciate that part of the world's ideas about craftsmanship and about interior design. And in particular, one thing that we really focus on is the Swedish concept of lagom, which is it's an ideology for the culture there that translates to basically just right or just enough.
Yeah.
And that can be anything from your live and your work relationship or how much sweets you want to eat. But it's also a big part of their interior design. And its basic principles are you don't need to fill your house with a lot of objects. Just fill your house with essential objects. And those objects should be well crafted and stand the test of time, basically. You should not have to replace those after a year. So it's high quality, fine craftsmanship, and then stuff that actually speaks to you rather than just purchasing them and filling your house with them.
Now, do you have primary business goals for the next 12 months?
Yes, our major goal in the next 12 months is to get Alyssa full-time into the business. So now she's kind of straddling the two. I'm the sole person doing all of the business ops at this point. So that's our major goal in the next 12 months is to do that. We're also going to launch some new teaching and education programs in the next 12 months too, which we're really excited about.
Oh, very nice. Are there large looming challenges you're facing in achieving these goals?
I think the largest one is just the uncertainty of the market. I mean, having this problem with inflation and really people kind of holding on to their coin purses a little bit, or their wallets a little bit. I think that's the main issue: is are we going to be able to get enough in revenue to allow Alyssa to come over full time? Because I think once that happens, I think us as a business we're going to expand quite well because we're going to double our staff.
Right. Basically, you're going from 1 to 2.
So I think that's going to be huge for us, but we have to be sustainable in that part of it.
Speaking of being sustainable, excuse me, you mentioned, because we sent out a survey, and you mentioned in that survey that funding doesn't have a large impact to Camp Copeland, but strategic discussions and strategic planning and mentorship does. Can you talk more about that, being a small business that is in the art space? What is the impact of funding versus strategic conversations or strategic planning and mentorship does for Camp Copeland?
We've had a little bit of funding here and there, but mostly our funding that we've received has been for specific projects or pieces of equipment. And that's been great because we need those to expand. But I think the bigger part of our growth has come from having these partnerships or working in certain like incubators and accelerators and having these peer conversations. There's several organizations around the Pittsburgh area. You are part of a center, which is huge. I was part of a program there, and that was wonderful. That was probably the most pivotal for me growing my business. But also there's other ones that could get us into connections with different interior designers or different art-based organizations. The real key to these working in these mentorship programs or these incubators that has helped me so much has, especially coming out of the pandemic, that was quite a challenge for us, was I didn't really know what I didn't know. And so taking part of these incubators and things like that allowed me to actually understand my business a lot better by telling me, basically informing me what I didn't know about my business, which was actually quite a lot at one point. I was like, oh, this is all fine. And then I went into some of these programs and I was like, I really need to learn a lot about this to come out of the pandemic with my head up. And I thought that having these conversations with like-minded artists, especially professionals such as yourself, really helped me kind of traverse that crazy
situation that nobody anticipated.
Yeah, exactly. I went from running a business that was solely on wholesaling to tiny shops around the country, a few of them, and that was our business. And then the pandemic basically closed them all. And so I had to start from ground zero again. And without the help of these kind of organizations, I don't think we could have done that.
And I think some of the feedback that I would get is, to some, the planning feels like a lot of theory or paperwork that's taking you back from executing. But I think for those who embrace it, it's diving into the unknown. You go through the strategic and the planning phase, and then you execute. But without the planning phase, you're kind of like executing without having a direction. And if you don't plan things out, it'll take you. It's just you're directionless.
Yeah, you're kind of like wading in the ocean a little bit, is how I thought. And I still do sometimes feel like that since I haven't been in the program I was in with you. It's been a couple years now. And when I do feel like that again, I come to a point and I think, okay, I don't know what to do next at this point in my time. I do revisit those workbooks and all the notes and stuff that I worked on in that program and some other programs too. And I go, okay, so now this is what I do. And then I can make a plan to get me from where I just got to the next part that I want to get to. Yeah. So it's been very helpful continuing in the future. And I've talked to other people too who have been in similar programs, and they still are like, yeah, I totally go back to those notes and things like that over and over, just as a refresher, just to make sure I'm still on the same track. So yeah, it's very, very valuable.
I'm glad it's evergreen and helpful, because I know at the time it was a lot of material, and people were overwhelmed, but Bridgeway and Ascender intended for it to be evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't meant to be, in 10 weeks, absorb everything. It was supposed to be in 10 weeks, know what's there so that you can come back to it in the future. You don't have to know it in those 10 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
But know what's there so you can come back to it and you know where it's at.
and at first it was,
it was
some
like
of these meetings, I was just glazed. I was like, what?
Drowning in the material.
But yeah, as long as you calm yourself down, you
right.
start going through step by step, which is actually a really good exercise as an entrepreneur, is to be able to collect yourself and go through step by step when you have this mountain of things to achieve. Yeah, exactly. You have to take that deep breath and say, this is my mountain that I have to climb, and this is how I'm going to do that. So I think that was a really helpful exercise too.
It's so nice to talk to you 2 years after and see what the outcome has been. Because I think being one of the mentors, we do spend, quite a bit of time thinking, I hope they take the material and absorb it and use it.
It was great. And like we were talking about earlier when we first got on together, that before we started recording, I recommend this to so many people every year that they should apply for that same program. So yeah, so hopefully it's just going to keep getting more and more people.
I keep changing it every year. So, but okay, back to the questions. I did want to ask you, is there any reason, or do you stay up to date with the latest developments in this space that you're in? It being, an art and home goods type of product.
I do more in the overall, like the type of artwork that we make. So in the craft world, I stay up to date on what's happening in the craft world for people that are making new things, or in the glass world, which is constantly evolving. And I know that we both take part in memberships to different groups, like the Glass Art Society or some Viber group that Alyssa is part of. So that's how we keep an eye on what's happening. And I think that's really important, because then you can play off what other people are doing, so that there's this cool kind of artistic riff. You're like, oh, I saw this guy make this really interesting object over here. So I like what he did with that. So I'm going to kind of tweak that a little bit and do something else with it in this way. And yeah, so that's how we kind of keep track of that part. And then as far as the business end goes, I look up, market research online, and I keep track of, how like retail is doing especially over the past year, like since the pandemic ended a little bit and as we're coming out of that. I keep a pretty steady watch on like how retail is done for this period of time, just to see how consumers are reacting to the present environment. So I think we kind of try to keep track of both things, so that we can create this maybe Venn diagram and be like, where's our place in this world at this point in time? Yeah.
If it was a chessboard, like what's your positioning in this chessboard?
Exactly. Yeah. Because you have to think about what's going to come next, with who could have thought about, the war happening, we kind of all saw it building up a little bit, but how that was going to affect how terrible it is, but how is it going to affect, gas prices and inflation and our cost of materials and all that stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that I research constantly to try to keep a little bit ahead of it as much as possible.
Speaking of keeping ahead of it. Did you develop this because you're already very experienced in the field that you're in? Would you say that that developed over time, like knowing what to look for and having the instinct developed already because of, your history with the product set that you have? Or is it because of all the research that you do? It doesn't matter whether you're experienced or not. How would you describe that dynamic?
Well, no, I mean, it's maybe a combination of both experience and the amount of information I digest for these types of things. I think, I'm probably not great at several things of being a small business owner, but I do think we've been around since, 2015 as a business, and we've had a bunch of ups and downs and bumps and start over periods like the pandemic. But I think it's a combination. I think one thing that I've been able to really do is be able to figure out, and I've seen these certain things happen, like these red flags pop up where I'll think to myself, oh, this could be really bad for us. And I should probably think about diversification as far as what we can do to create revenue now and just to have that plan. And if I don't need it, then I have a new revenue stream. But if I do need it, this could be something we can completely fall back on when something else doesn't go our way. For instance, with like inflation and our cost of goods, some of our products, our sales overall have gone down a little bit for the past year, but we've been able to kind of balance that out because we've transitioned into art education. So I'm teaching people how to make glass art. I share a lot of information on that. And I'm also consulting with a glass factory so they can get up to speed on how to make glass art like I do. So I've branched off into this because I kind of understood that this year might not be the best for us for product sales alone, so that we need to kind of expand. So I think knowing that and doing all this market research and watching how retail sales, although I think they might be coming back up a little bit, but at the time, they were kind of flatlining a little bit, and understanding that, well, we should probably, just to be safe, develop something else and adjust my attention over here for a little bit of time. I think that's a pretty valuable thing. I think it's based on just a combination of experience and the amount of research that I do on the regular basis.
And I think I advise entrepreneurs to do market research, constantly. And it's not that you've experienced this kind of inflation before, because thinking back to 2015, I don't think we've had this kind of inflation since then, or really any inflation above 2% since then. So it is new. And the way you've sniffed it out, I would venture to say, is through research, not experience. I don't think any of us has experienced it.
Yeah, I think it's mostly research. Yeah, I think just being the experience of having to start over and pivot, I guess, is what I was saying. It's like having I wouldn't call it like courage to kind of direct away from something that is going okay, but you're like, this is going okay, but probably not going to go okay in a couple of months. So,
you're seeing the macro trends and you're listening to what it's telling you.
Yeah. So I think it's a combo. I think it's mostly research, though. You're probably right.
Yeah. And that's where the strategic planning, coming full circle to an earlier question, really why you say that that's more impactful than funding.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, okay, so any upcoming product releases or plans for expansion?
Yeah, we're going to release another batch of these pieces of glass that I think are super fun. They're kind of taking my glass art to the next level. They're really bright and colorful. They have these like kind of organic shapes, and they can be used as bowls or trays or just pieces of art. They're focused on color theory based on giving you a positive boost in life. So they're all these really bright pastel-y colors. So those are coming out. We have a few out that just got released, and I'm going to release some more in the next couple weeks. And then, so we're planning on these educational resources, which are going to be out probably more towards the fall, which I'm really excited about. One thing I really like about being an artist is teaching other people that they can also make things. Because you see so many people, then you're say, oh, I'm a glass artist. And the first thing that they'll say is, oh, I can never do that. But you can. Everybody can. And everybody can be really good at it if you devote a lot of time to it. I happen to be obsessive about things that I really like. So I was like, oh, I like glass. And so I dove right into it. But I think I really enjoy teaching, and I really enjoy surprising people with their own abilities to be able to make things.
You actually taught me to make my own lavender tea, and it is the most delicious tea that I have ever had.
That's right. Are you still growing it?
It was lavender tea that I bought from Lowe's from a lavender plant. It
Huh?
was that simple.
No, it's good, right? And you did it, and
It
it's
was really good.
yeah, you'll never go back probably because you know how to
I
do it.
cannot go back after that. Anything I buy that's packaged from a store just doesn't compare.
It's
The
not the same.
flavor is just not there.
Yep, it's not the same. We were doing a lot of chamomile teas too, which I think I maybe told you. We had these big chamomile plants, and I would pick those chamomile every couple days. There'd be hundreds of chamomile flowers, and I would use those for months. But this year, they didn't come back, and so
Oh,
so I might have to actually buy some, and I'm kind of begrudgingly gonna do it. Like I haven't done it, but yet, but it's just not the same. It's not gonna be the same.
it's funny how it is actually very simple to start.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until you told me you have lavender from Lowe's.
Mhm.
Pick them and make tea. I'm like,
That's
that's it? Like, are you serious?
And that's very much like making glass. You can just go in and cut some pieces of glass and fuse them together. You can do that. It just seems like, I think it's more like, where do you get started in the whole process? But yeah, once you start doing it, you realize you can do it.
That was a valuable lesson.
That's great.
At how simple it could be.
I'm so glad.
So, have you found a marketing or customer acquisition strategy that worked for you as an artist? Because I know, some artists will think that, oh, the art is enough to drive people in. Is that true?
Kind of, but not really, I would say. You need partnerships with organizations. Even if you have to consign your work at a museum, that might be a really nice thing to do, especially when you get started, because then you have all those extra eyes on your objects and things. So I think that's really good. I really have dove headfirst into web, like SEO, and doing that Google key. And so driving, because I know that, especially in Pittsburgh, there's not a lot of organizations where we can put our handmade pieces. There's a few, but there's really not a ton of them. But having Google around, we can actually reach a lot more people if we can use the right keywords and stuff like that. So I definitely work a lot on getting people to direct to our website, which has worked quite a bit. And we also do a little bit of the social media thing as well. But I think our main is having these partnerships with organizations who are going to share our stuff, or working with like markets, handmade craft and art markets, and then going direct and getting people to drive from from Google to our website.
When you say markets, are those in-person vending event?
They can be, yeah. So they could be in person or virtual. There's less and less virtual happening now that things are opening up, which is kind of nice. But the in-person ones, people are ready to come out and meet artists again, because they really something that they just definitely missed. So that's been really nice. Yeah. So just getting out.
Are trade shows helpful at all? Are there such things for artists?
There are, but we really haven't had much success with them. I think we used to go to a craft specific trade show before 2020, and most of the stores, that's actually how we met all these kind of boutique shops and these small businesses, but they wouldn't order that much, and they would only order maybe once or twice a year. But then when the pandemic closed almost all of them, unfortunately, they just kind of just wiped them out. And so we stopped going to that in-person one. And a lot during the pandemic, a lot of the virtual ones started to pop up, but they really just take a lot of money off the top. So just to have like a website, they'll take a huge chunk of your already wholesale price just to have your stuff on there, your objects on there. And it just didn't seem like it was very worth our time after a while, especially when our prices started going, like our inflation started making our material costs go up. It just didn't seem like it was worth our time to take this, big chunk of right off the top of this transaction. So we actually don't. We field inquiries on our website about wholesale, but we only do direct through ourselves. So we don't have any third party at this point, like portals or anything like that, to get any wholesale or trade shows.
So you've found that direct to consumer has been the more sustainable route for you?
Yeah, it has.
What about Amazon? I get a lot of questions about Amazon.
We actually don't even shop on Amazon anymore, but when they really...
I have a lot of junk from Amazon.
We used to get a lot of stuff from them, and then there was a point where I thought I read that Jeff Bezos wanted to sail his yacht through Amsterdam or some part, and a bridge got in his way, so he paid them to take down the bridge so he can get his yacht through. And then
goodness.
And I was like, that guy has way too much money. I don't want to support him anymore. So we stopped our membership. I don't know if that's true. That's just what I heard, but I was already I was at my...
That's not a good use of money.
Hopefully it's not true, but that
I'm
was like,
hoping it's not, but who knows?
I
I
just
need to
couldn't.
look that up.
One thing that I thought was really interesting though is that since we got rid of our Prime membership, is we don't spend as much on just random stuff. You know, like we were like, oh, we should get that cat thing. Our cat needs that thing, and we would just buy it. So now we were actually spending less money overall, which is really cool. But for your question, for Amazon, they sought us out pretty hardcore for a while. Like they were emailing us and we thought about it for a little bit, and we just never wanted to do that because it seems like they want more like mass producible goods, you know. And so we wanted to keep it very kind of personal. We're very small batch, you know, going back to just two people making things in our studio and sending those things out. We like that kind of that small, you can see who we are kind of vibe. And I felt like going into Amazon, although we probably sell a ton of spoon rests and soap dishes and whatever else, it just kind of would take away from our, like, we want to make this quality in this small amount and have it be more personal to our consumers.
And I think, you know, your products too, no two things would be alike, right?
There's a slight variation in, like, because I use raw material. Well, we both use raw materials. I use raw glass that's handmade, and so yeah, you might get some like little bit of subtle streakiness to it, or the colors. The companies have color tolerances, so if you put two pieces together that are made like a couple months apart, they might vary slightly. But we think that's kind of the charm, right? Because we're using handmade raw materials to make the thing with our hands. It's just the whole line of a handmade, high crafted good, which I don't know if that's exactly what Amazon is all about.
No, it is not. Given that it's you in the business, do you ever find that you're out of capacity or that it's hard to balance work and life?
All the time, every day. Yes, being a one person with Alyssa making her products, but not being full time in the business. It is a lot of work, especially with a business like ours. I think with a handmade business is that our service has to also be handmade. So on top of, you know, marketing and meetings and that sort of thing, we actually have to get up and go to the studio and make the object, which take several days to make as well. So that's another kind of wrinkle in it. But I never get everything done on my daily task list. But I think you just kind of have to be, that's okay. Like you're doing the best you can. You've come to a point where you've completed your daily bit. Like I could probably work until 10 o'clock at night every day, but that wouldn't be very healthy for me, which doesn't do anybody any good, because then I'll burn out and then everything else will just kind of get put on the back burner. So I try to keep hours, specific hours. I might go over those like an hour or two, you know, work a little overtime, but I try to definitely keep a routine to my work day. And I keep lists everywhere. I have we both use the Google Calendar, so we know exactly where we're going to be. Like if I'm teaching or if Alyssa's teaching or whatever, we know exactly where everybody's going to be. I have a daily task list for certain things, and then on the computer, and then I actually have on in our living room in the house below me here on my first floor, I have this huge glass dry erase board. And that's where I have like what I'm going to, my goals for the day, and then I can just check them off. But I always see them. That's a nice thing that I could wake up, go downstairs, get my cup of coffee, and be like, okay, that's what I wrote the night before. And like certain things can shift over. So I actually know exactly what I'm supposed to accomplish. But the key is to not get super frustrated when you don't accomplish all this.
You don't do it. Move it to the next day, change the date.
Roll over. It's like a wave. It like crests and then it kind of pulls back and then it comes back. It's just, yeah.
I do the same, but digitally.
Okay.
I move the task over to the next day.
Oh yeah, it's a great. I mean, it's a very freeing experience when you're like, that's okay. Like I could just shift that over to the next thing, and you know that you're only human and you're only going to get to so much time.
Exactly. Give yourself some grace, entrepreneurs. Like don't forget to be kind to yourself.
You have to. I think what was it last month? I think I saw was Entrepreneur Mental Health Day or Mental Health Month. Like I make a point when I wake up in the morning, I've done this for a couple years now, as I exercise every morning just to clear my head. And then during that's like my little me time that cleans, like gets me woken up and then allows me to just like have a little time before I actually get into the work. And then I'll just work as much as I can until my cutoff time. And then at that cutoff time, I really am just like, no more emails. I don't want to look at like the website or anything. Like you need that downtime to shut off your brain to reset for the next day.
And then shameless plug. Given that it's just you and hopefully Alyssa soon into the business, what does the business need at this time? How can anybody watching, the audience or the viewers, help
Well,
support?
I mean, at this point, we have a lot of items on sale that if you want to add something to your house, we have plenty of work from, like we were talking about for the spoon rest earlier, to other items around your house. We have bigger like art pieces if you want to fill your house with color. We're always adding new pieces, but I say, yeah, if you wanted to throw something, replace something that you bought at a box store and replace it with a high crafted object that can do a better job, I'd say
Yeah.
that would be great. We have our website, which is campcopeland.com. You can follow us on Instagram or Facebook too with Camp Copeland. But yeah, we have a really good newsletter where we send out our product releases and what we're up to. But that'd be great. We're just plugging along. We're just two artists that really love what we do and want to share it with as many people as we can.
So the next time a high waste, highly disposable plastic product or something has lived its life in your home, replace it with something more permanent that doesn't need frequent replacement, that doesn't need to go into the landfill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any individuals, organizations that have been instrumental in your journey that you'd like to give a shout out to before we close?
Yes, absolutely. Well, Ascender, of course, where we met. I think
They're great.
that program is outstanding. But yeah, around here also we worked with the Pittsburgh Glass Center quite a bit, and they're wonderful. They're very supportive of their artists. And there's Monmade is another one who we work with, who's also local. We're actually working on, if anybody is opening up an office, we are about to release some acoustic wall panels, felt acoustic wall panels that cut down on noise using sustainable fiber, sustainable wool. So those are going to be released pretty soon, and they're really great. They're big color block panels that you could fit in, and they do work. We were at an exhibition where they were like kind of sneak peeked, and they were put in a corner, and that corner was so much more quiet than the rest of the gallery.
Is this new, or this was around 2 years ago, or was it in development 2 years ago?
I think we've been thinking about it for a while, and then
Okay. Because I think I heard about it 2 years ago too.
yeah, we've been talking about it for a little while, and we didn't know how to make it come about. And then we started working with Monmade as part of it was a Green Leap cohort, so a sustainable building design cohort. And so that was when we finally actually got to bring it to life. And they're pretty cool. And we should have them. They're bigger now, and we're going to have some smaller sizes too. But right now they're big just for the built environment. But we're going to have some smaller sizes hopefully in the next couple of months.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's fun. It was a fun product to design for sure.
Would this be on Camp Copeland's website?
Yes, when we put them on there. So the big ones you could get through Monmade or contact us direct. And then we're going to make some smaller ones for home offices or smaller building environments that we're going to have on our website.
Very nice. All right. So again, you can find Camp Copeland at campcopeland.com, and Monmade's website is
Monmade.org.
Monmade.org. All right. Well, thank you so much, Drew. It was so nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great seeing you again.
Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye, thank you.